Welcome again to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Geneva. We seek to meet you wherever you are on your journey and invite you to be part of this congregation in which we draw wisdom from all the world's religions, balanced with the insights of modern science. We seek to build a diverse, beloved community within our virtual walls and hope to inspire and accompany one another as we act for peace and justice in our larger world. There is a theory. There is a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear and be replaced by something even more bizarre and inexplicable. There is another theory which states this has already happened. This quote comes from the novel, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, written by one of my personal heroes, Douglas Adams. The book is the second in a 5-part trilogy. That is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, which I'm sure we'll all agree ought to be required reading in high school. I mention it here at the outset because it reminds us of a deep and important fact about the universe. It's this: the universe is really weird. Really weird. One of the gifts that quantum mechanics and modern theoretical physics has given us is a controversial, actually very controversial, set of ideas that could be collectively called multiverse theory. In that collection, we find suggestions that our universe is not the only universe, not out there. In fact, there may be many. How and if they differ from our universe, it kind of depends. But one really weird suggestion is that these other universes are not out there beyond the detectable limits of space-time. They're right here, almost as if they're right on top of us. Each one following out the consequences of our actions. In that scenario, every action you take, whether or not you hit the snooze button, whether you chose the red sweater or the blue, whether you turned left at the stop sign or turned right, every choice you make or could make is found and followed out in a new, different, alternative universe. I have a hard time with this, and theoretical physicists tend to shrug at my incredulity. While I don't necessarily get it in this universe, I am reassured by them that there are other universes where all of this makes perfect sense. If this is so, though, there are some things that follow. One might be a universe where the Twin Towers never came down, where JFK was never assassinated, where World War I never happened. Universes where the British Empire never collapsed, where humans still have tails, where the moon, Mars, the asteroid belt, and Europa have already been colonized. Universes where I had a full head of hair, a 32-inch waistline, and where I just cashed the winning lottery ticket. This month, we're exploring the theme of possibility. 2 weeks ago, we took a long look backwards at 2020 and pretended that was the year everything changed. Last week, we explored personal responsibility for the world that we want to live in. And this week, we're going to talk about a TV show, which reminds me that this is an excellent time for us to do our thing. So I'm going to ask our tech team, see if we can bring our remote guests back into the sanctuary. And we're going to have them, yeah, exactly. We're going to, if you're at home watching, you should be able to click that gallery button and bring all of the windows up to see all of your friends. And if your cameras are off, know that we are watching your blank square. We can totally see that your camera is not on. Now, in the spirit of our friend, the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III of Trinity Church here in Chicago, I want you all, whether you are online or in person, to turn to a neighbor. Any neighbor will do.
Okay, and you gotta get in.
Yep, I am looking right at you. Yes, ma'am, I'm looking right at you. I want you to turn to that neighbor and say, through your masks and using your indoor voices, for those of you that are here, say, neighbor. Oh, neighbor. We can imagine. Excellent, well done. Thank you so much. By now, I'm going to assume you all are at least aware of the phenomenon that is Marvel Studios. Yes, we're at least aware of it. You may not be fans, and while I'm sure there are some universes where that would be considered a character failing, in this universe you'll probably get no judgment. Now, as many of you may know, there are 25 full-length theatrical films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU. And there are 2 more coming out this year. There are also a host of TV shows that have already been released or are in the works. You could say that our entertainment culture today has been taken over by superheroes. And today I want to lift one of these cinematic experiences out of the horde. Because this week, the final episode of the Disney Plus series, What If, will air. Even by superhero comic book standards, What If is weird. Maybe I'd better let the story explain itself. Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. It's a prism of endless possibility, where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities, creating alternate worlds from the ones you know. I am the Watcher. I am your guide through these vast new realities. Follow me and ponder the question, what if? What If, then, is a TV series. It's based on a Marvel comic. Now, that comic actually dates back to the 70s, when I was really young. And as you've probably surmised by now, it has for decades played with this idea of multiple universes, the multiverse. We're going to wave our hands now at the theoretical plausibility of an infinity of possibility that's captured somewhere within the folds of quantum reality. But the idea, at least, is relatively straightforward. As the title suggests, this series explores what might have happened elsewhere in the MCU, if only things had gone just a wee bit differently. Again, assuming you're familiar with the various movies, what you'll find in this show are those familiar stories somewhat altered. What if Steve Rogers, who became Captain America in one universe, is replaced by Peggy Carter? What if T'Challa, who was to become the king of Wakanda, is abducted by the Ravagers instead of Peter Quill? What if Thor was raised as an only child? What if none of this means anything to any of you? That's fine. Next month's theme is relationship, so stay tuned for that. What about this show? I like it because it scratches an itch I tend to worry at regularly. I play the what if game a lot. As I mentioned, I play that game that, like last week, we talked about the what if I won $1 billion or $1 million, right? I play it a lot. I admit it. It's not because I am desperate for cash or anything. I just imagine what things could be like if things were different, right? I think it's instructive, maybe as a way to look forward. But it's also, I'm aware, right? I'm also aware that it's nostalgic and not necessarily in a good way. I probably will never win $1 million, much less $1 billion. I am okay with that, mostly. But I like to think that if fortune does happen to throw me that curveball, I'm going to be prepared. I'm also aware that I will never be shot full of Vita rays or gamma rays for that matter, and I won't be unexpectedly bathed in the light of an infinity stone or have my humanity scoured clean by the power cosmic. That means I'll never become Captain America, male or female. I will never become the Hulk or the She-Hulk, coming soon to Disney+. Nor will I become Captain Marvel or the Silver Surfer. In short, I'm not really destined to be a comic book hero, and I'm okay with missing out on those realities, but I wonder. I think many of us do. Maybe not about being a superhero, but about our normal everyday lives. We wonder about worlds that might have been. Gesundheit. Choices that we've made. We do that thing where we second guess our choices, don't we? We rethink our conversations. We replay our actions and the actions of everyone around us just to see what happened, what might have happened, don't we? This is perhaps a favorite game of too many of us. Wandering down the rabbit hole of what if, beating ourselves up for things we did or didn't do, said or didn't say, opportunities we passed or seized, relationships, jobs, lottery numbers. We remember our lives as one thing through this lens, trapping ourselves in a funhouse mirror of past events, things that could have gone one way but didn't. And we bludgeon ourselves for our lack of perfection, our lack of infinite knowledge, our lack of unwavering resolve, our lack of Buddha's wisdom or Christ's love. We human beings are awesome at beating ourselves up. We don't really need a multiverse for that. Which brings me to science fiction. This past summer, Hugo Award-winning author Ted Chiang gave a lecture he titled Science Fiction and the Idea of the Future. In that lecture, Chiang argued that the role of science fiction was different than, say, fantasy. For Chiang, a fantasy is where something dramatic happens and the heroes struggle to get back to the status quo. Everyone is fine. There's a big kaboom. Epic mayhem follows, and at some point, everyone's lives return to that happily ever after. That's fantasy. In science fiction, though, something dramatic happens. An innovation is introduced. But after that innovation, there is no going back, because now there is a brand new status quo. A brand new status quo. The innovation is fundamental change in the world. And the rest of the story is really just figuring out what life would be like after that, with that one thing different, whatever it is. Flying cars, the collapse of American government, immortality, faster than light rocket ships, quantum computing, time travel, the end of disease, human cloning, genetic manipulation, and designer babies, the complete destruction of the planet by alien construction workers to create an interstellar bypass. What science fiction gives us, at the very least, is an opportunity to imagine, to ask ourselves, what would life be like then? Science fiction, especially as handled in the MCU, is weird. Maybe you're sensing a theme. Anyway, in the MCU, there are super soldiers and genetic mutants, telepaths and Spider-Man, Hulks and Norse gods. In response to these innovations, specifically the presence of superpowered people, the MCU explores in rather classic science fiction fashion what the response is by the non-superpowered people. There are authoritarian governments with pogroms, registrations, state-sanctioned oppression. There are rather convoluted global treaties that prevent and permit strange and unusual behaviors. There are raids by secret police, new supermax prisons. Sure, the stories are epic and wild, but they're also vehicles for rather timeless literary themes. Honor, debt, love, betrayal, friendship and family, survival, othering, belonging, hope, destiny, fate, and the search for truth and meaning. Which brings me to art. Many years ago, in a universe rather close to this one, I wanted to be a novelist. It didn't really work out, at least not yet. But in my own what-ifing, I seriously doubt that, say, true crime drama would ever have been my thing, or family drama, or really any kind of drama. For a confluence of reasons, this is not the kind of art that has ever really spoken to me. I'm tempted to say that real life is actually gritty enough already. It doesn't need my embellishing or editorializing. I suppose you could say that this past year and a half has shown me pretty clearly that reality isn't always cracked up to be whatever it is that I want it to be. This is not a new insight. I'm cynical enough now to know that reality is often not what I'd wish it to be. I almost feel bad saying this out loud, but here it goes. I am not at all interested in art that reveals the world that is, or even the world that was. I just don't care. Instead, what I want to know about is this: what might be, what could be. My own imagination will only carry me so far. So what I want to know, what I need art to show me, is what luck, hard work, and imagination might yet create. That's what really gets me going. Because I already know the world is broken. Don't show me the crack again. Instead, tell me how the light gets in. When I play the what if game, I want to open the book of imagination. I want to look at the world and repaint it with a brush of possibility. I have a set of innovations, things that I want to see in the world. What I want then is to see what happens next. And that's why I'm a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As for the show, I will recommend it to you, but mostly only if you're a fan of Marvel stuff. It's fun. Even if you're not a fan, seeing the Avengers eaten by zombies might be worth the time all by itself. No judgment. As we turn to the close, I want to suggest to you that the very possibility of the multiverse isn't meant to be, or at least I don't mean it to be, a hair shirt or a stick, another stick we use to beat ourselves up with. Really, none of us need that kind of help. In this universe or any other, the past is what it is, and what the past in all universes all share is that they are all gone. As the Buddha teaches us, we can let that go. And no, I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know if there are multiple universes, or if there are, how we might reach them, how we might explore them. Our theories, our math, our science really can only take us just so far. That's why we have science fiction, to help us imagine, because we can imagine. I want to say that what this show reminded me is what the multiverse theory really kind of suggests to me is that we can imagine. Our world may be whatever it is, but we can imagine it different. We can imagine that it doesn't have to be this way. And maybe it is helpful if we believe that somewhere, perhaps somewhere as close as a whisper, there is a universe where things are different. A universe where we are all superheroes, maybe. We can imagine our world as different than it is today, what that could be like, what our world could be like with just a few innovations. Simple ones, really, barely science fiction at all. We can imagine a world more just, more compassionate, more inclusive, more kind, more loving. And what if that's all it takes? What if by naming these possibilities, by imagining them, by fixing these ideas, these ideals, into our own internal night sky, a new constellation can be born in that multiverse of possibility. And with this as our new heading, maybe this is how we navigate our world into that new and better world. What if? Amen, and blessed be. As we prepare to leave this place, continue your journey in love. Care for one another and care for this, our earth. Do justice and make peace. And as you go, know that whatever taste or touch you've had in this time and place of hope, joy, love, peace, possibility, that goes with you out into the world. We are different for having spent this time together. So remember, live boldly and with thanksgiving.